All right, I think we're live. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. All right, it's not going on my laptop, but anyway, it looks like my phone. It looks like we're up and running. Good evening on this. Good evening on this Thursday evening. That's what it is. August 24th, 2023. Wow, we're coming into. Oh, we're getting through the summer too quick. Anyway, I just love the summer. I just came in from working outside. And I think I did this backwards. All right. Worked outside. It was beautiful today in the 70s all day. Kind of muggy, but in the 70s it's nice. Good working outside weather. Anyway, I hope you all had a wonderful day. I certainly did. I got all my logs that I cut up. I got those all into the woodshed, and I did some hard work today, so I'm kind of tired. But get a second wind here, and we're going to go through the two versions of Abraham casting out Hagar and Ishmael. A horrible story, if you ask me. Anyway, but we're going to go over the doublets. It's actually a triplet, but there's actually like two distinct. I see two distinct versions, but we'll go over the three sources that were put together. I'm going to shut down a couple of these tabs so I don't need them all up. It would just slow stuff down. I was looking at a few things, and there was, and welcome, by the way, welcome to anybody who's listening. And if you're listening on the replay, thank you for listening. But as I was looking and getting some stuff together for tonight, I was I was just pulling something up. Sorry about that. I'm pulling up the some like PowerPoints. And the thing went across the screen, and sometimes they want you to click on something. I'm trying to they want me to sign in. Okay. Oh man. I have to create an account for this. Okay, forget about that. Forget about that. All right. I got it now. All right, so yeah, we got a couple things. So as I was going through this, I am just pulling out some tabs I don't need. But as I was going through this, I do remember once I got reminded that this story is also in the Quran or Quran or whatever, however you pronounce it. Some people say Quran, some people say Quran. But this story is in Quran, but it's they see it a different way, obviously. So I thought that would be I bookmarked that because I thought that would be kind of a cool study to see, go over the two versions. And I do find it interesting. And another thing I never really dug too deep into was, I never really dug too deep into, well, not into the Quran at all. I never read the Quran or anything like that. But one thing I always was curious about, like, it's like, how did the Temple Mount? How did they end up there? You know what I mean? And I know what year and all that kind of stuff. I did look into that. I know the year and stuff, but it's like, isn't it kind of interesting how it got swapped out like that? On which back in the old day was called, well, actually, when they had, um, oh, I shut down some of these. Too many of them open. And another thing that they don't well, like, yeah, so how did we know how the destruction of the temple came about in 70 AD? We into the Romans, all that. And we also know, like when the Temple Mount was built, but like, who decided that on that piece of land there, which they actually in Genesis it's called land, land of Moriah, kind of like um, Mount Moriah, Mount Moriah, but we'll read tonight. It's actually called Land of Moriah, so which is Jerusalem. It's just interesting how today there's a Temple Mount there, which is interesting to me. So I would like to see the difference between, so I bookmarked that between the Quran's version of this story, Ishmael, and of course Isaac or whatever. Their version, because it is different. In fact, it's kind of swapped around. That's why I understand it. So anyway, that would be kind of interesting to look into. So all right. So anyway, I got everything ready to go, pulled up. So yeah, there is a Yahweh source, a priestly source, and an Elohim source. Oh, you know what? I need to pull that up too. So just as I'm coming in here until just watching, see if anybody comes in. Otherwise, I'm just gonna keep doing this. All right. So yeah, the doublets. You can just pull up doublets, like timeline or something like that. And I always like to pull up the it's funny if you if you type in doublets, it comes up with this fancy puffy coat that if you don't put Hebrew Bible in there, it comes up with this puffy coat that was on Seinfeld. All right, Hebrew Bible. You gotta put in Hebrew Bible. You could just go ahead and type in. I should have had the camera on and showed you that. That's funny. I laugh every time that pulls up. All right, where is? Oh no, I just put in doublets. Time on a Hebrew doublets. Anyway, that's funny. I can't imagine a man being dressed like that. Here, I gotta pull that up. Imagine a man walking around like that, wearing that. He's the fencing guy, by the way. Or dressed like that. Imagine the guys walking around like that. That's called a doublet. These are called doublets, by the way. So if you don't put in Hebrew Bible, imagine men being dressed. So if you don't put in Hebrew Bible before you put doublets, that's called doublet. Okay, linen doublet, 15th century. You can get that as a stupid thing. Yeah, you can get that as a costume or something. 15th century. This is called a linen doublet. So yeah, if you don't specify, very beautiful outfits. 17th century. So what was that? The 1800s. Really, that's what they dressed like back then. No, that would be the 1600s. Yeah. Okay, I was gonna say there's no way it would walk around the 1800s like that. Yeah, wait, 16. Yeah, actually, so it'd be 1600s. So anyway, that's what guys looked like in the 1600s. So anyway, we don't want that. That definitely we don't want doublets in the Hebrew Bible. All right, much different. All right, there's the so she's out of I don't know if it's Yale University or something. Yeah, it is Yale University. Anyways, you could watch her talk about the doublets. It's pretty cool. But anyway, there's the sources, the JEPRD. This is what we want. That one right there. Because this one, this one shows the age. So we're going to go over the different versions of the Hagar and Ishmael getting thrown out by Abraham and Sarah. And there's two versions. There's one in, well, they say three a triplet, and I'll show you that. But so there's two of them in 16, which is anyway. So there's a Yahweh source and a priestly source combined in 16, and then in 21 of Genesis, also Genesis, there's an Elohim source, which is 16, 5 chapters later. So anyway, so first of all, let's see, J source. So you have a mixture of a J source and a priestly source in chapter 16. And then 5 chapters later, you have an Elohim source. So really, they're coming from this and this. So you got your Genesis 16 is basically coming out of this, mixed with priestly, but well, so 16, this is one story, the J story. Then there's the E, the Elohim story, and then there's the P, the priestly story. The Elohim story here, this is in Genesis 21, that version of Hagar getting thrown out, and then in the sun, and then in Genesis 16, the earlier account, and I can't even say earlier. They, as you can see, they come about the same time, between 722 and 922 BC. In this 200-year period, these two stories come about. Like one's from the northern tribe or northern kingdom, one's from the southern kingdom, or whatever. But these two stories come together, and like I said, so there's not just three sides. There's this side, there's the Yahweh side, the Elohim side, the priestly side, but guess what? There's a fourth side. It's in the Quran, and that's their side of the story. So actually, there's 4 sides of the story. So anyway, so the two main sources of so you got Genesis 16. And just because 16 comes before 19 doesn't mean that this one came before that one, obviously. So they came about, who knows when, but they came about. I had that graph or that timeline yesterday, and I think that Yahweh source started scribing first, like writing it down first. But I don't quote me on that. But anyway, one of these two started, but they definitely started writing down before the rest of them. So before that was all oral law. So early oral and written sources. So up to a certain point, which was what, about 6, I can't remember, between 6 and 700. Well, no, 597, I can't remember, but maybe it was around 600 BC when they were brought into Babylon, into captivity. That's when they, we said on the timeline yesterday. But it was about the time they got brought into captivity. So anyway, so just remember that. So we're going to go over Genesis 16, the one version first. There's two stories in that one. It is the J and the P source. And then we'll go over 21, which is the Elohim source. Oops. All right. Now, little ads are popping up with when they actually we're just going to show you real quick. See, when the ads start running, like little videos start running, it slows the whole my computer down. So anyway, I don't like that. All right, so here's what we're going to go over tonight. Here, I'll just get it a little closer up so you can see it better. And where it is, all right, Hagar and Ishmael. There it is. Hagar and Ishmael, right here. Oh, wait, no, that's not it. Abraham's migration, wife, sister, these are all doublets and triplets. Abraham and Lot separate. Abraham, Hagar and Ishmael. Okay, this is it. All right, so this is the one that we're going to go over. Hagar and Ishmael. This is where Abraham cast them out. So we have it in Genesis 1 version. The Yahweh source is in 16. 1 and 2, 4 and 14. And then you have the same chapter 16. 3, which, see, they got it kind of mixed. They got, okay, so 3, 15, and 16 is the priestly source. But then I see a whole, this is where I see like kind of at least two stories. So you got this one and 16, these two combined. And then you got the Elohim, a much different story in 21. So this one, I mean, if they, I guess they dissected it and there was two sources in there. And then there's this story. So anyway, we'll show you the differences in the two. So that's the one that we're going over tonight. Let me shut that. And so let's start out by going to the Blue Letter Bible. We're going to go read the two. Before we go into the differences, we're going to read the two. Well, hey, Grace, how you doing tonight? Welcome aboard. Hope you had a wonderful Minnesota day. You know, it was only in the 70s here, but it was really humid. So as soon as I started working, it got hot. But otherwise, it was kind of cool. It was weird. I'm in the 60s right now, which is nice. The windows open and fan blowing. Nice. All right, 16-1. How was your day today? Hey, the Minnesota State Fair started today because I went into town. Me and the dogs went into town to get some dog food, and there's some of their kibble for their meals. And of course, I cooked them dinner. You guys know that, but they also eat the kibble. So we went in to get some, and I always listen to the radio. It's the only radio. I don't have a radio at my house or anything, TV or anything, but so I do listen to the radio on the way to town and back to try to catch up on anything. And I could tell instantly they're at the state fair because they're like talking in a booth. They're like in a plexiglass booth or something. I knew right away. That's right, the state fair. I thought, why? That sounds weird. Oh, I know why, because they're broadcasting from the state fair. I listen to talk radio over at 107. And so yeah, I just always catch up on see what's up on the way into town. And yeah, that's right. Sounds like they're in a plastic booth because they are. and then the state fair. So anyway, that started today. It goes 10 days, and then when that ends, the next day is always the first day of school. That's how it's always been in Minnesota. The day after the state fair ends is the first day of school. Kids go back to school on the next day, which is usually the day after Labor Day. Had a fantastic day. The work crew called early this morning, asking if they could come today versus 2 weeks from now. They had a cancellation. We have hot water. Yeehaw. Yeah. Isn't that nice? The basic little things that people take for granted. Well, congratulations. Enjoy your ever flowing water. It is hard, huh? It's hard to go without water. I have done it. Wow, you would have gone another 2 weeks? Yep, I know. I've been there, man. I've gone. When I first moved up here, I had all kinds of repairs done. In fact, when I first moved in here, I had no running water. Well, I had some. Then sometimes I had no running water because my pump went out for my well. And anyway, so I've multiple times I've gone without water for a couple weeks, and yeah, you realize how awesome it is when you get it back. Well, once it stops coming out of the faucet, once the toilet stops flushing and the shower don't shower, it's just those simple things, man. I was never so happy to write that check. Yeah, I remember what you went through. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you get everything, man, from showering. Um, you wouldn't believe how much water it takes to do a little shower, and also to do dishes every day. You not just hot water to do the dishes. You need rinse water too. It's a whole nother pan full, another gallon, at least 2 gallons. Anyway, that's people people think that they've stocked up on water to drink. Okay, that's great. But what about cooking? You know how much water you use for cooking? A lot. You don't believe how much water people go through a day. You become very inventive when you need to. I know. I've done it. I don't even mind it. I'm just so happy to be here. It's just like if the water stops working or whatever, if I have to go without something, that's fine. It's so peaceful here. I just don't care. Um, it's inconvenient and stuff like that. And it makes you appreciate stuff like that, the little things. Yep, yep. You figure out how to take a shower. You figure out how to make a toilet or a lugabaloo or something like that, or how to flush it without running water or whatever you're gonna do. The showering is really cool if you can get one of those spray pump things with the faucet on it or with the sprayer on it. Is a real awesome way to do it. So anyway, congratulations, Grace. Absolutely keep on counting those blessings and be happy for what you have. Yep. I just found yesterday, I think it was yesterday, the day before, this little tiny wood plaque I have. And it's a picture of a rabbit dancing with a bunch of little rabbits. And it says, pray. It says something like, it says, pray for patience for all your blessings or something like that. uh, pray for patience for all your blessings or something like that. Pray that you're patient with all your blessings or something like that. Yeah. Yeah. Look at all the blessings versus the inconveniences people have to go through. But I just saw a live stream where somebody came in, they were living in a tent. Older lady actually living in a campground in a tent. So, and she's happy as can be. I mean, So yeah, I'm pulling up Blue Letter Bible. We're going to go through the two accounts of Isaac's uh, Isaac's birth and his when he got kicked out. This is I don't like this story. It's just I used to like it. No, I don't like it because you just got to think about. Like I said, put the shoe on the other foot. Look at it from Hagar's point of view. How would you like to be a young lady who is sold into slavery from somebody from another country? So, in other words, you're trafficked from Egypt into Israel or wherever they were. And and you're not just a slave, but you're a sex slave. And it was Sarah's slave. But what's the difference? Because Sarah and Abraham are married, and they were brother and sister, so they know each other their whole life. So whatever, it was theirs. But anyway, she kind of so they so Hagar is basically a sex slave. For Abraham, and then a slave for Sarah. So imagine what a horrible life that is. And these people are old. Remember, they were 100 years old. And you know what it reminds me of? Anyway, I'll just tell you in a second. I'll tell you in a second. You know what? I'll tell you what it reminds me of. But so this young Hagar, and there is a it's not in the Bible. It's not in the Hebrew Bible, but there is a version of a story, I should say, that the Jews believe that there's some Jews or whatever. But I did hear it really doesn't make it clear. It's just she's an Egyptian slave in the Bible, in the Hebrew Bible. But there's I don't know, tradition or whatever you want to say that Hagar was like the daughter of a prince or something important, and she was gifted to Abraham or Sarah. I can't remember, whatever. But anyway, there's not that what page is that on, because it's not in there. That's some kind of tradition. But anyway, we don't know how Sarah or Abraham or whoever, how this couple ended up with her, but she's a young lady, was taken out of her country as a sex slave, and as a slave for the wife, sex slave for the husband, and then basically human trafficked to another country. I doubt she was cool with it. Anyway, you know what it reminds me of? Because in today's world, these people would be thrown in prison. If you traffic somebody from another country, it's older couple, traffic some young girl from another country, and the husband uses her as a sex slave, and the wife uses her to, clean around the house or whatever, and a house slave. I'll show you who that reminds me of. I mean, they'd be going to prison. I mean, for a lot of stuff. Oh, and then get this, and then forced to have a child, and then after they're not happy with you for whatever reason, you are actually thrown out in the desert, you and your baby, to die, because all of a sudden they have their own child, and now yours don't matter. In fact, they're not even calling your child, your son, the firstborn anymore. They're calling the new baby the firstborn. What? Isaac is the firstborn? Record scratch. Wait a minute. What do you mean Isaac is the firstborn? Anyway. So I don't know, I guess Ishmael got demoted. But not according to like the Quran, which I don't know anything about, but that'd be interesting to compare the two stories. So I did bookmark that. But anyway, so okay, so you're a sex slave for the husband and a house slave for the wife. And then all of a sudden now they're saying you have to have a baby for this guy. You have to have a baby, and God forbid it's a girl. But anyway, it was a boy. But later they had their own, and I don't know. For different reasons. It depends which story it is. Because there's two different stories. And so she gets thrown out for, it depends. There's one reason, one story, another reason, another. Anyway, we'll go over the differences. But you know what this reminds me of? Remember that story like in the 90s or whatever? What was her name? J.C. Dugard? Where this old couple that are just like Abraham and Sarah kidnapped that girl, J.C. Kidnapped for like from the bus stop or something. And kept her in the backyard in a tent, mind you, and it was his sex slave and whatever. And anyway, the couple I guess went to prison. They might have even gotten out. I don't know if they died or got out. But remember that guy? He had the big wart on his nose. Anyway, that's what it reminds me of. The kidnapping compound. Anyway. Bless that girl. Oh, and by the way, she also had two daughters. She had while being kidnapped. I think it was like 18 years or something. They kidnapped her. Like almost 20, and then she had like daughters. I forgot. Yeah, she's got like two daughters from the kidnapper guy. But anyway, it just reminds me of that story. Anyway. Because this is what they would do today. If this happened today, yeah, they'd be on the cover of National Enquirer and they'd be on all the news stories. All right, so anyway, we're going to go over the differences in the two stories, but first, let's see here if I'm going to pull up. So we're going to go over the first one chronologically comes in chapter 16. So I have the Blue Letter Bible, chapter 16. Yeah, look at it from their point of view. And same with when they went in to kill the Canaanites, the Jebusites, the Perizzites, and all the other sites. And okay, really? They've been living there for thousands of years, and you're just gonna go wipe them out like the Native Americans were. Anyway, put the shoe on the other foot. How would you like that? Anyway, and kill every man, woman, child, and puppies and kittens and everybody. Oh, but keep the virgin girls for yourself. Like, wait, record sketch again. All right. So this is 6:16. This is so I'm just gonna show you how they broken up. Okay, this is the story of Sarah and Hagar. Actually, very short story. And you know what? Now I think of it, you know what? I don't think Hagar says one single word. I don't think she's got a single line in here. He said, here, she said, I'm fleeing from my mistress. Okay, that's the angel. When she's talking to the angel. Anyway, it's one of the few times that Sarah speaks because she doesn't speak much. But. All right. So the first version. Now, just to show you where they split it up between the priestly. This is just like one story, and then there's another story in 21. But in 16, they've actually got two contributors to chapter 16. One is the J source, which is verse 1 and 2. So this is here. This is this. Oops, come on, you. This is the Yahweh source of it. And then 4 through 14, all the way down to 14, is the priestly source. All the way to here, this is the priestly source, all that. And then through verse, the Elohim part is here, verse 8 through 19. So I can't put it all on the screen because it just won't fit. But anyway, so it's just, oh wait, it's just I'm sorry, it's Yahweh and the priestly source. Yeah, that's what I said, Yahweh and the priestly source. So there's two sources that go into 16. And obviously the Yahweh source is 200 years earlier. So basically you'd say it was a Yahweh source, and later priestly sources probably, added to it. So anyway, contributed, however you want to look at it. All right, so let's read this version, chapter 16 version of Sarah and Hagar. Sarai and Hagar. Yeah, so look at it from her point of view, from the poor Hagar's point of view. What a total rip-off. And what a horrible life to have to live like that. Anyway. So Sarai and Hagar, must be before she had her name change. Once she got famous, you get to change your name, right? All right, so 16. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, oh yeah, before they got their name changed. Sarai, Abram. So Sarai and Abram's wife had borne him no children. She had a female Egyptian servant whose name was Hagar. Now, like I said, I don't think there's anything in the Hebrew Bible. I might be wrong, but I don't think that there's anything written how they ended up with Hagar. Like, how did they buy her? Did they take her out of Egypt? Like, whatever. I guess it really don't matter. And at the end of the day, to Hagar, it really doesn't matter. So Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children. She had a female Egyptian servant whose name was Hagar. You should just ask anybody who's been human trafficked. Does it really matter who bought or sold or who the one? No, it doesn't. It is what it is. And Sarai said to Abraham, "Behold now, the Lord has prevented me from bearing children. Go into my servant." Remember what that meant? That is why they know that this is the Yahweh source, because Yahweh people say this. This is a euphemism for sex. Go into my servant, to have sex with my servant. It may be that I shall obtain children. Footnote says be built up, which sounds like Hebrew for children. So yeah, so Hebrew. So I may have children by her. And Abram listened to the voice of Sarai. So after Abram had lived 10 years in the land of Canaan, remember they're in the land of Canaan, right? Sarah, Abram's wife, took Hagar, the Egyptian, her servant, and gave her to Abram, her husband, as a wife, which the original says as his woman or something like that. Anyway, and he went into Hagar, euphemism for sex, and she conceived. And that is from the Yahweh source. They always say went into. It's always from the Yahweh source 100% of the time. That's how they know line per line who wrote this, because they're the only ones that said that. Went into Hagar and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, she looked with contempt on her mistress. In Hebrew, it says her mistress was dishonorable in her eyes. So, okay. You force her to have sex with the husband to get pregnant. Once she gets pregnant, now you're disgraceful when they look at you. Okay. And Sarah said to Abram, quote, "May the wrong done to me be on you." Okay. So now Sarah, I see how it is. So Sarah orders Abraham, or asks Abraham, and he much obliges, to go have sex with the slave a slave girl from another country and get her pregnant. And once he gets her pregnant, she is contempt. She can't stand the girl that they got pregnant. And she's telling Abraham, may the wrong done to me be on you. It was her idea. You just saw it was her idea. So now she's mad at the slave for having the baby, and she's mad at Abraham because he did what she said and got her pregnant. Okay, so it's their fault. I see. May the wrong done to me be on you. I gave my servant to you, to your embrace. And when she saw that she had conceived, she looked on me with contempt. May the Lord judge between you and me. Yeah, it's your fault. But who is looking at who with contempt? They keep saying she. And he went into Hagar. Okay, that's Abraham and Hagar. She conceived, which is Hagar. And when she, who's she, saw that she had conceived. So this is Hagar. She conceived. So when Sarah saw that, they should use names in these stories. But so you can figure it out though. So when Sarah saw that Hagar conceived, Hagar or Sarah looked with contempt at her on her mistress. Dishonorable in her eyes. Okay. Yeah, it's their fault. And then she says, may the Lord judge between you and me. Well, good, because she's going to see that he saw it was your idea. She's already got him convicted. But Abraham said to Sarai, behold, your servant is in your power. Do to her as you please. Then Sarai dealt harshly with her, and she fled from her. Okay, great position for Hagar to be in. The angel of the Lord found her by a spring of water. Now, this is interesting, you guys, because at this point, she is still pregnant. Remember? She's pregnant. Then she says, get her out of here. He says, do what you want. So she says, get out of here. The angel of the Lord found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, the spring on the way to Shur. And he said, Hagar, this is the angel speaking, Hagar, servant of Sarai, where have you come from and where are you going? She said, I am fleeing from my mistress Sarai. Right, she's treating her like crap. The angel of the Lord said to her, return to your mistress and submit to her. So in this version, Hagar is running away from these evil people. And the angel says, nah, you should go back to your evil mistress, to your evil her evil mistress Sarah. Okay, no, the angel says, the angel Lord said, return to your evil mistress. Well, it says mistress, and submit to her. Okay. So the angel's on Sarah's side. The angel Lord also said to her, I will surely multiply your offspring so that they cannot be numbered for multitude. Huh. Really? Okay, so that is Ishmael's. Really? Okay. And the angel of the Lord said to her, behold, you are pregnant. See, so she's still pregnant and she's running away on her own. The angel said, go back to your evil mistress. It says, behold, you are pregnant and shall bear a son. You shall call his name Ishmael. And Ishmael means God hears, because the Lord has listened to your affliction. He shall be a wild donkey of a man, his hand against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. And he shall dwell over against all his kinsmen. He shall dwell over, live over against all his kinsmen. Okay. So she called the name of the Lord who spoke to her, You are a God of seeing, or the God who sees me. Isn't that interesting? She's calling the angel a God. You are a God of seeing, a God that sees me. She called the name of the Lord who spoke to her. A minute ago, it was an angel. You are a God of seeing. Truly, here I have seen him who looks after me. Footnote in Hebrew says, have I really seen him here who sees me? Or would I have looked here for the one who sees me? All right. Therefore, the well was called Bir Lahia Roy. Footnote says it means well of the living one who sees me. It lies between Kadesh and Bered. And Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram called the name of his son, whom Hagar bore Ishmael. So she must have, because remember, he wasn't around. Abram wasn't around when she's talking to the angel. So Hagar must have told Abram that the angel said that this is his name. Well, unless he just, I don't know, like was influenced somehow to, I don't know. Abraham was 86 years old, and Hagar bore Ishmael to Abraham. Okay, so remember, when Abraham does get Sarah pregnant, he is 100 years old. So what would that make? 14 years old. If he's 86 now, and then Ishmael is born when he's 100, obviously Ishmael's 14 years older, right? Easy math. Remember, he's 86 years old. Let me write it down. I don't think this is the same in the other story here. So he's 86 years old when Ishmael was born. All right. So he'd have to be. Ishmael have to be 14 years. All right, so that's okay. So let's go to the second story, the second version. This is in chapter 21. Now this is a different, the Elohim version, and I think the Elohim, one is the northern, one is the southern. So anyway, so this is the birth of Isaac. This is the second version. You know what's interesting? I like this Blue Letter Bible version because the Blue Letter, you don't have to scroll down to the bottom and see the footnote, which is the pain in the butt. You just hover over it, and it shows a footnote. And second of all, it gives you matching verses there. So that is in the New Testament, Hebrews 11:11. That's interesting. 11:11. So he's mentioned in Hebrews, I guess. Sarah. Anyway, so this is the birth of Isaac. This is the other version. Chapter 21. All right, so let's read this version. And this version is the Elohim version. All right. In Genesis 21. The birth of Isaac. The Lord visited Sarah. Now see, her name is Sarah now, and now their name is Sarah and Abraham. I mean, do you see how they could be two different sources here? I know they did a little explanation of how Abram turned in, like God said, no, forget Abram, we're going to call you Abraham. And then Sarah, he's like, nah, we don't like Sarah, we're going to change it to Sarah. So they do have a kind of like a, I guess somebody slipped in maybe like we got to explain how their name changed, which nobody did in the book of Acts when Saul turned to Paul. You know what I mean? They didn't even slip nothing in there. No explanation. But anyway, so this source, the person telling this story, their name is Sarah and Abraham during this whole Isaac pregnancy thing. Anyway, just something to know. The Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did to Sarah as he had promised. And Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age at the time of which God had spoken to him. Abraham called the name of his son who was born to him, whom Sarah bore him, Isaac. Oh, this is Isaac. Oh, okay, yeah, okay. This is when Isaac was born. This is Isaac, and Isaac means laughs. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded him. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. So obviously now Ishmael is what? 14 years old. Remember, he's 86 when Ishmael was born. Now he's 100 and Isaac is born 14 years later. And she said, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? I'm sorry. I missed one. So here, after Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him, and Sarah said, God has made laughter for me. Everyone who hears will laugh over me. She said, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? Yet I have borne him a son in his old age. So that's why Isaac means laughter, because they're going to laugh and say, yeah, right, you didn't have that baby. Anyway. Which, yeah, I don't know. Where did the baby come from? Anyway, God protects Hagar and Ishmael. Now, it's funny. I just looked at this footnote in Galatians 4:21. It looks like actually nine verses about this. Interesting. And the child grew and was weaned. And they're talking about Isaac. And Abraham made a great feast on the day that Isaac was weaned. Big party. But Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian. Oh, isn't it the son of Abraham? Because you know what? They never, and I mean ever, hardly, well, you're always the son of a guy. To say that, refer to him as the son of Hagar is very interesting, because they really never mention the mom. It's Abraham's son, it's Isaac's son, it's Jacob's son. You know, they'll tell you who the mom was, but that's about it. But it's always the dad that they refer to. Anyway, but Sarah saw the son of Hagar. Now it's her kid. It's her son. It's not Abraham's anymore. But Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, laughing. Laughing in mockery. Okay, so she was mocking at the, I don't know if it's a birthday party. It was when the kid got weaned. It was when the kid got weaned. So, I don't know. Was it a 2-year birthday party? Whatever. Sorry, my dog is stretching, pushing me underneath me. It's okay. So Ishmael was laughing at the baby Isaac. So she said to Abraham, cast out this slave woman with her son. Oh, her son. Interesting. For the son of the slave woman shall not be heir with my son Isaac. Dun, dun, dun. For the son of this Abraham's son. But anyway, now it's not, I guess, now it's her son. Slave woman shall not be heir with my son Isaac. Wow. That's a monster. Like I said, put yourself in their shoes. So the kid's getting weaned. He's probably like 2 years old. So that makes Isaac 16, right? The 16-year-old is laughing, I guess, mocking the little baby that just got weaned. And the thing was very displeasing to Abraham on account of his son, Isaac. Now, see how they're distinguishing? They totally have, they've totally separated Abraham from Ishmael. You know what I mean? It's her kid now, Hagar's kid. And the thing was very displeasing to Abraham on account of his sons, ruining its party. But God said to Abraham, be not displeased because the boy and because of your slave woman. Whatever Sarah says to you, do as she tells you, for through Isaac shall your offspring be named. Okay, so, listen, if Sarah wants to get rid of her, let her get rid of her, because Isaac is the one that's important, not Ishmael. Because God said, because Isaac is your offspring, not Ishmael. Well, really? So how that works? Okay. And I will make a nation of the son of the slave woman also, because he is your offspring. God has to remind Abraham that, by the way, that's your kid too. Oh, don't worry, he'll have a nation too. Actually, look at him. He does have a nation. So Abraham rose early in the morning and took bread and a skin of water and gave it to Hagar. Do you know how much little water that is? A skin. So you got a small jug, maybe a half a gallon of water, and some bread. Putting it on her shoulder along with the child, and sent her away. And she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. When the water in the skin was gone, she put the child under one of the bushes. Now, I don't know, this kid's 16, but I don't know, maybe she told him, I guess. Then, when she sat down opposite of him in a good way off, about a distance of a bow shot, for she said, let me not look on the death of the child. And as she sat opposite of him, she lifted up her voice and wept. And God heard the voice of the boy, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, what troubles you, Hagar? God has no idea they're out there dying. What's the problem, Hagar? He said, fear not, for God has heard the voice of the boy where he is. Up, lift up the boy, and hold him fast with your hand. Kid's like 16. But anyway, for I will make him into a great nation. And then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. And she went and filled the skin with water and gave the boy a drink. And God was with the boy, and he grew up. He lived in the wilderness and became an expert with the bow. Okay, so he lived in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took a wife for him in the land of Egypt. Good for them. A treaty with Abimelech. Okay, so this is where that stops. So, we'll just go through the different. By the way, anyway, there's Jerusalem, land of Moriah. Here it is. He gives her. Kid really should be 16 years old in that, because anyway. So yeah, she got a skin of water. I'm not sure why she's got a jug, but she had a yeah. All right. Now, all right. Almost done here. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about the differences here. Now, one is basically she ran away because, I mean, when she's pregnant. In the other version, she is cast out. Well, in the first version, she is told to go back by the angel. In the second version, she just keeps going. They lived in the wilderness rather than going back. Got a little water, not from Abraham. They got some water from an angel so they could live. God or whatever. Now, so is Hagar expelled because Sarah is vexed at Hagar or Ishmael? And is Hagar expelled while pregnant or after she's given birth? And Yahweh blesses Hagar as a reward for suffering, or God blesses her on account of Abraham. All right. Now just let me read this real quick. In its present form, Genesis narrates the story of how Hagar is forced to depart from on account of Sarah's bitterness on two separate occasions, on Genesis 16, 1 through 14, and Genesis 21, 8 to 21. Yet each account of Hagar's forced expulsion gives two different reasons for why this happens, two different reasons for why Hagar's offspring is blessed, two different etiologies for the name of Ishmael, and two different blessings for Ishmael. Such differences bear witness to the fact that we're not dealing with a story by the same author, but rather two distinct traditions that told the story differently and which were stitched together at a later date. The editors that safeguarded both traditions placed the Yahweh's version earlier in the combined JE narrative and the Elohist version later. Thus, as we now have it, it appears as if Hagar is expelled twice. In Genesis 16 and in Genesis 20. Yahweh has it once, Elohim has it the other time. But in fact, these were once two separate tellings of the same story. In the Yahweh's rendition of the story, Sarah feels unjustly scorned and outraged by the very fact that her maid has become pregnant and she hasn't. Remember, it was her idea, remember? It is for this reason that Sarah forces Hagar to depart while pregnant in 16:4 and 11. The story is presented from Sarah's perspective. And that's why people don't get outraged at this story, because you're not seeing it from her. You're not seeing it from Hagar's perspective. You're seeing it from Sarah's point of view. You're like, yeah, get her out of here. She's so stupid, her and her baby. Like, wait a minute. That's the baby that you forced her to have with your husband. Anyway, the story is presented from Sarah's perspective. She feels lower or degraded in the sight of the now pregnant Hagar, and so she expels Hagar for this injury. This plot motive is then flipped around by having Yahweh's angel command Hagar to return to Sarah. It is now Hagar who must suffer the degradation. It is Hagar that must suffer the degradation of Sarah. And for this suffering, Hagar is rewarded by having her seed multiplied. So now it's Hagar's time to crawl back to Sarah. Additionally, Sarah, and you can tell who's, like I said, there is also a Quran version told by their side. Additionally, Abraham and Abraham's point of view are completely absent in the Yahweh version of the story. So, not so when we turn to how the Elohist story is told this story. First, it is now Hagar and Ishmael's expulsion, and they are cast out not because Sarah is vexed with Hagar, but rather with Ishmael. So see, the first time she's mad with Hagar, second time she's mad at Ishmael. Here's the quote we just read in 21:9-10. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, playing with her son Isaac. So she said to Abraham, cast out this handmaid with her son, because the son of the handmaid will not inherit with my son, with Isaac. The Elohist version of the story also accentuates themes that are absent in the Yahweh version, such as Abraham and his seed's inheritance, and the role of the divine revelation. In E's story, the Elohim story, The issue is inheritance. As the firstborn, Ishmael is legal rights to the inheritance. Got that? Got why all of a sudden that kid's got to go? Because they got a second son. They want Isaac to get the inheritance. Because Ishmael has legal rights to the inheritance, but this cannot be. And Sarah casts him out. She even said so. She ain't getting none of the inheritance. The question of the inheritance of the land is resolved at the end of the Elohim story by presenting Ishmael's opting out of his rightful inheritance by marrying outside of the clan. And Hagar took him a wife in the land of Egypt, right there. So, bam, you're out. Since the theme of the inheritance is naturally tied to Abraham's seed, it is therefore not surprising that Abraham plays an important role in the Elohim account. You know, it depends who's telling the story. They're doing it for their own benefit. You know, it's kind of self-serving, whoever tells the story. In the Elohim narrative, we perceive Abraham's grief at the fact that his firstborn is expelled by Sarah. God intervenes at this point in the narrative and promises Abraham that Ishmael will be made into a great nation because he's your seed. Remember, you had to remind him. As in the previous Elohim version, so too here. The plot is moved according to the divine revelation. Thus, while the Yahweh's version progresses as a dialogue between Abraham and Sarah, leaves the action in the hands of Sarah, doesn't develop the character of Hagar, and places Yahweh's intervention at the end of the narrative. The Elohim develops the character's pathos more by providing insightful internal details, places God as a character in dialogue with Abraham, leaves the decision active in the hands of Abraham, who now acts according to divine revelation, and presents us with a more developed Hagar. Finally, both traditions play on the theme of sight, only it would seem that each one recorded this differently. In the Yahweh's version, Hagar names the God who visited her El Roy. El Roy. Remember we saw that? And those Canaanite gods, El Roy, the God who sees me. Remember El Roy? It's a different God. And that is the God who sees Hagar in her plight. Thus, we also have an etiology in the name as well. Bir Lahoy Roy. Well of the living one who sees me. So well of that God. Well of Roy. El Roy. Well of the living one who sees me. But in the Elohim version, nothing is mentioned of this. Rather, it is the God who opens up Hagar's eyes so that she sees the well and is thus able to provide water for the boy. Additionally, typical of E's angel calls from heaven, while Hagar directly encounters the angel of Yahweh. So the Elohim ones call the angel from heaven, the other one calls the angel of Yahweh. This is a staple feature of the Yahwehs. In the end, these types of stories attempted to account for the existence of other ethnic peoples in the region, such as the Ishmaelites of the Arabah, by retrojecting the author's own knowledge of peoples at this time period into archaic story about two women, a maid and a mistress, who both engendered a son from Abraham. And Grace says, never mind all that. How did she get a skin filled with water and refill it? Everyone knows it's been changed to bottles. Yeah, right, Grace. That's a good point. It's a Mandela effect. She should be filling up bottles, not wineskins, lest they burst. Yes. Yeah. Silly Mandela people. Anyway, all right, we're going to wrap that up. Let me see. I think Gotta make sure. Oh, here, I got one more thing. A couple PowerPoints. This is the one that I pulled up at the end. The Bible verse mentions though scholars have noticed inconsistencies comparing Ishmael's age between Genesis 16 and Genesis 21. Genesis 16:16, Abraham was 86 years old when Hagar bore him Ishmael. Genesis 21 says Abraham was 100 years old when Isaac was born to him. Early the next morning, Abraham got some bread and skin of water and gave the Hagar, placing the child on her back and sent her away. So this child, if Isaac is 2 years old, Ishmael is 16 years old. So how did the 16-year-old get placed on Hagar's back? Yeah, that's right. Chew on that one. Right? He's 86 years old when Ishmael is born. 14 years later, Isaac is born. So Ishmael is 14 years old when Isaac is born. Then at the weaning at probably 2 or 3 years old, Ishmael is now 16 or 17 years old. So how is that 16 and 17 years old getting placed on Hagar's back? I'll tell you what, when my son was 16 years old, he was playing football. He was taller than me. He was like a linebacker at 16. Yeah, I can imagine. I'd be going on his back, if anything. Abraham would have put me on my son's back when he was 16. 17. Oh, man. Oh, my kid was so much bigger by then than me. Anyway. So anyway, but that's logical. Who wants to do math? People don't want to read yet do math. I know, reading and doing math, forget about it. Anyway. All right, guys. So I'll wrap it up and say goodnight. And I'll get back to my chores I got to do. Anyway. So, thanks for coming in. I hope y'all have a good rest of the evening. If you're listening on the replay, I hope y'all have having a fantastic day. And yeah, I'm not doing homework. I'm doing chores. So I was outside all day, so now I gotta do chores inside my house. That's how I work it out. I do everything I can outside when it's light out. That night I gotta do my chores. So yes, anyway, well, thanks for coming in. I hope y'all having a great day. If you're on the replay, thanks for coming in, everybody. You're listening live or listening on the replay. Wow, I got 4 thumbs up. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Anybody who gave me a thumbs up, thank you for that. I just noticed. Anyway, awesome. All right, guys. Thanks for coming in. Well, thank you, Grace. Grace says, thank you, Mama Cat. I love you, Kathy. Love, prayers, and blessings to you all. I'm hitting the shower. Yeah. Well, congratulations, Grace, on your running water. It's those little things in life, right? Anyway. All right. Awesome. All right. Sweet dreams. Anyway, I hope you're all going to sleep well, and I hope you have an awesome day tomorrow. Oh, tomorrow's Friday, I think. Anyway, awesome. Good night, everybody. Love y'all. Good night. And shalom.